Welcome to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I'm your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. I've spoken to tens of thousands of people all over the world about the importance of kindness. And I am obsessed with how we can bring more kindness into our daily lives and restore balance to a deeply unbalanced world. Every episode, I'll give you 3 practical strategies to create a kinder world, and I'll do it in 30 minutes or less. No fluff, just valuable, actionable content that you can implement in your life immediately after listening to help you actively create a kinder world. There's no time to waste. Let's dive in. Welcome back, my friend. It's an honor that you're here for episode 14 of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Today, we're talking about something that's absolutely critical to your success on this kindness journey: protecting your mind from toxic influences. I affectionately call this process guarding the door because, metaphorically speaking, your mind is like a house and you get to decide what you let through the front door. For real, if someone came to your house carrying literal bags of garbage and asked to dump them all over your living room floor, you'd kindly slam the door in their face, right? Yet, many of us regularly allow mental and emotional garbage into our minds without giving it a second thought. This is not okay. Here's what I've learned in my work. We cannot build a kinder world if we're constantly filling our minds with toxicity, negativity, and division. As I share in my book, Civil Unity, if we want to have the emotional and mental strength to do this challenging work, we must be intentional about what we consume. In today's episode, I'll give you 3 practical strategies to guard the door of your mind from 3 incredibly common pitfalls that will weaken us for the challenges ahead. So whether you're feeling overwhelmed by the constant stream of bad news, drama, and negativity in the world, this episode will give you concrete tools to protect your mental space, reclaim your relationships, and give you the strength to create a kinder world. If you're ready to begin the process of guarding the door, my friend, let's jump in and make this happen. For the first kindness strategy of the episode, let me start with a confession. I used to be a cable news addict. I'm talking about checking news apps every few minutes, having cable news on in the background all day, and falling asleep to political commentary. I told myself that I was staying informed, but the truth was I was slowly poisoning my own mind. There's a reason why cable news is often called angertainment, right? Don't take my word for it, though. Research from Brian McLaughlin, Melissa Gottlieb, and Devin Mills in their study Caught in a Dangerous World reveals some sobering truths about what they call problematic news consumption. They found that 73.6% of people with severe levels of news addiction reported experience mental ill-being, quite a bit or very much, compared to only 8% of everyone else. But here's the kicker. 61% of problematic news consumers also reported physical health problems compared to only 6.1% of other participants. We're literally making ourselves sick by over-consuming news. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we stick our heads in the sand and ignore what's happening in the world. That's not only irresponsible, but in these wild times, it's actually dangerous. Still, though, there's a massive difference between staying informed and being addicted. Here's what excessive news consumption does to us. First, it exploits what's called the negativity bias in our brains. This is an evolutionary quirk that made our ancestors focus more on threats like saber-toothed tigers than on positive experiences like finding a lovely apple tree. In other words, back in caveman days, the negativity bias kept them alive. Today, it just keeps us glued to the screens, watching endless streams of disasters, conflicts, and outrage. Second, cable news creates what I call monolithic avatars of the enemy. Think about this for a minute. Instead of seeing nuanced human beings who likely shop at the same grocery stores as we do, root for the same sports teams that we do, and whose kids attend the same schools that ours do, we start viewing entire groups of people as threats to our way of life. Not only is this deeply problematic, but it makes kindness nearly impossible. And third, constant exposure to tragedy and violence desensitizes us. If you're old enough, do you remember how you felt when you first heard about the mass shooting at Columbine High School? Compare that to how most people react to news of a mass shooting today. Exactly. Most people just shrug and keep scrolling. I understand that this emotional numbing is a defense mechanism. I get that. But it also erodes our capacity for empathy and kindness. So how do we break free from this? Here are some strategies that I have used that work for me. First, read headlines instead of watching the news. Instead of watching 3 hours of angry pundits, telling you how terrible everything is and the world's going to hell, pick one time per day to scan headlines on a reputable news website. If something truly important is happening, allow yourself to click on one article per day. That's it. I promise you'll be just as informed as someone watching hours of cable news, but without the constant cortisol spikes going through our veins. Your nervous system will thank you. Secondly, turn off all news alerts. Those breaking news notifications hitting your phone multiple times a day, they're not helping you, fam. These breaking news alerts are training you to be in constant reactive mode. And if anything is breaking with these nonstop alerts, it's likely your brain. Most breaking news isn't even breaking anyway. And if something earth-shattering happens, trust me, you'll hear about it without your phone blowing up with alerts multiple times a day. I'm challenging you right now, friend. Go to your phone settings right now. Go ahead and do it and turn off every news alert. Go ahead, pause this podcast. I'll wait. If you're a news addict, this will feel scary at first. I get it, but that's your addiction talking, my friend. You got this. Third, take a weekly news detox. Once a month, commit to going one full week without consuming any news whatsoever. 0. When you feel the urge to check the news, take a walk instead. Read a good book. Listen to an uplifting podcast like this one. This shows your brain that you're in charge of your news consumption, not the other way around. After just 1 week, most people will report feeling significantly calmer and more optimistic. I implemented these strategies in my own life after realizing that my news addiction was making me a worse husband, father, and quite frankly, human being. I was constantly on edge, seeing threats everywhere and losing my faith in the goodness of humanity. Now, I scan headlines once per day, have 0 news alerts on my phone, and I take regular news detoxes. The result? Yeah, I'm still informed about important events, but I'm not being drowned by the fire hose of toxic cable news sludge all day long. So here's your first kindness strategy of the episode. This week, choose one of these 3 strategies and implement it immediately. If you're a heavy cable news consumer, start with turning off news alerts. That one change alone will dramatically improve your mental state. Notice how you feel just after a few days of not being bombarded with urgent news that really isn't urgent at all. Remember, staying informed is obviously important, but staying addicted to outrage is literally destroying your capacity for kindness. I am not half-stepping on this, my friend. Please guard the door of your mind fiercely when it comes to cable news consumption. Honestly, it could change your life. Now, let's turn to another major threat when it comes to our mental well-being: social media. Before I dive into the second kindness strategy of the episode, raise your hand if this sounds familiar. You pick up your phone to check the time, and 3 hours later, you're watching a video of some monster gleefully adding raisins to a sweet potato pie while feeling inexplicably angry that any human being would be so untethered from their humanity to commit such a gross and awful atrocity. It's not just me. Okay, good. Social media was supposed to connect us, but for many people, it's become a source of division, comparison, mental exhaustion, and gross people adding raisins where they don't belong. The average person spends 2 hours and 24 minutes per day on social media. That's 876 hours per year that we're often filling our minds with content that's not improving our mental health. Again, don't take my word for it. Here are some statistics that should give us pause. According to research compiled by Bright Futures, 59% of adults report that social media has negatively impacted their mental health. 42% feel more insecure about their appearance after using it, and 63% report feeling lonely despite being connected to hundreds or thousands of people online. But here's the statistic that really gets me. 44% of social media users report experiencing online harassment or abuse. We're voluntarily spending hours each day in spaces where nearly half of us experience some form of mistreatment. For real, would you hang out in a physical location where there's a 44% chance of being harassed? Of course not. Yet we do this digitally every single day. To be clear, look, I'm not anti-social media. I use it for my business, and there are wonderful aspects to these platforms. In fact, chances are you're listening to these words right now because I posted about the Kindness Streams podcast on my social media channels. So no, I am not anti-social media, but I am pro-intentionality. Most of us consume social media the way that we might mindlessly eat an entire bag of chips. Actually, I'm not going to put that on you. Maybe that's just me who does that. Still though, being intentionally about what we're feeding our brains has never been more important. Social media becomes problematic for our kindness journey in three key ways. First, it creates echo chambers that reinforce our existing beliefs and biases. The algorithms ensure that we see content that aligns with our worldview, which means we rarely encounter perspectives that might challenge or expand our thinking. This makes us more rigid in our beliefs and less capable of civil discourse with people who see things differently. Secondly, it amplifies the worst human behaviors. You know this is true. The anonymity and distance of online interaction bring out cruelty that most people would never have the guts to display face to face. Even worse, we start to believe that this online behavior represents how people actually are, which erodes our faith in humanity. And third, it creates constant comparison and FOMO. FOMO, by the way, is the fear of missing out for the uninitiated. We're often comparing our behind the scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel, which unsurprisingly leaves us feeling inadequate and resentful. So, how do we reclaim our peace and guard the door? Here are three powerful and simple strategies. First, try the fountain versus drain audit. Look at everyone you follow on social media and ask yourself, does this person fill me up like a fountain or do they drain me? Think of your social media feed like your living room, as mentioned earlier. If someone came into your home with muddy work boots on and started putting their feet up on your furniture, hopefully you'd ask this person to leave, right? Do the same thing with your feed. If someone constantly posts content that makes you feel angry, anxious, or frustrated, and here's the wild part, even if you agree with their positions, unfollow or block them without guilt. Your mental health is more important than adding to their follower count. I did this audit on my own feeds and removed dozens of accounts. The result? Social media became a place where I actually enjoy spending time instead of a source of daily stress. Second, create phone-free zones. Keep your phone out of your bedroom entirely. If you use it as an alarm clock, I am kindly challenging you, buy a real alarm clock if you have the resources to do so. The last thing you need to see before falling asleep and the first thing you need to see upon waking should not be social media drama and political arguments. Also, establish phone-free times during your day. I don't check social media for the first hour after I wake up or the last hour before bed. This bookends my day with intentionality instead of reactivity. Third, and this is for my real ones, delete the apps, but keep the accounts. This one sounds extreme, but hear me out on this. Delete the social media apps from your phone, but keep your accounts accessible through your web browser. This adds just enough friction to prevent mindless scrolling while allowing you to post and check messages when you constantly choose to do so. Most people are shocked by how much their usage drops with a simple change. Instead of checking Instagram 20 times per day out of habit, you might check it once or twice when you actually have something to share or specific content to view. I implemented all three of these strategies after realizing that social media was making me less patient with my family, more judgmental of others, and generally more pessimistic about the world. The change was dramatic and almost immediate. So here's your second kind of strategy of the episode. Conduct a fountain versus drain audit of your social media feeds this week. Unfollow or block at least 5 accounts that consistently drain your energy, even if their content aligns with your beliefs. Replace them by following accounts that inspire you, educate you, and actually add to your peace instead of reducing it. Now let's tackle perhaps the most challenging aspect of guarding the door, the people in our lives. Hey, fellow kindness extremists, it's me, Shola. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you're mowing what I'm growing, if you're smelling what I'm stepping in. Okay, I'll stop. If you're enjoying what you're listening to so far, I would love it if you would take a moment to hit the subscribe button and leave a rating and a review. Those incredibly kind acts go so far in helping me to reach as many people as possible who will join the movement to actively create a kinder world. I appreciate you so much, my friend. Okay, let's get back to the episode. For the third kind of strategy of the episode, we need to lean into the hardest part of guarding the door. It's the hardest because it involves people we may care about, people we're related to, or people we see regularly. But here's a truth I learned the hard way. You cannot create a kinder world while allowing toxic people to consistently drain your energy and poison your mindset. Let's be clear about what I mean by toxic people because this term can be wildly overused. I'm not talking about someone having a bad day or going through a rough patch. We all have moments when we're not at our best, myself definitely included. I'm talking about people who consistently display these patterns. 1, they drain your energy every time you interact with them. 2, they refuse to take responsibility for their actions, blame others for everything, and never apologize. 3, they're chronically negative, pessimistic, and reject any attempt at accepting solutions. 4, they disrespect your boundaries repeatedly. 5, they create drama wherever they go. And 6, they make you feel worse about yourself after spending time with them. Here's what I've learned. Some people need to be loved from a distance. Yeah, I get it. That sounds harsh, especially if we're talking about family members or longtime friends. But consider this. If you had a friend who was an alcoholic and they kept showing up to your house drunk and destructive, would keeping them close be helping them or potentially putting you and your loved ones at risk? Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is create boundaries and, more importantly, consequences for their harmful behavior. In episode 10 of this podcast, I spoke of the importance of building your crew, people who feel with you, laugh with you, and stand with you. But the flip side is equally important, removing people who consistently tear you down. Consider this addition by subtraction. Here are 3 strategies for handling toxic relationships that I've been using for years. First, conduct a vibe check. Make a list of the people you spend the most time with. For each person, honestly assess how you vibe with them. More specifically, whether you generally feel better or worse after spending time with them. If someone consistently leaves you feeling anxious, drained, or negative, they may be toxic to your mental health. This doesn't make them a bad person, to be clear. It just means the vibe of the relationship isn't healthy for you right now. Second, set and enforce boundaries before cutting someone off completely. Try setting clear boundaries. This might sound like, I care about you, but I can't listen to constant complaints about your job anymore. Let's talk about something else. If you keep raising your voice at me, I'm going to have to leave this conversation. The key, my friend, is enforcement. Many people set boundaries but don't follow through when they're crossed. If you say you'll leave a conversation when someone becomes disrespectful, you must actually leave. Otherwise, you're teaching them that your boundaries are negotiable. And I can promise you, you do not want that. Or third, be ready to use the gradual fade or the clean break. If boundary setting doesn't work, you have 2 options. For the gradual fade, picture the Homer Simpson meme where he's like fading slowly into the bushes. From a practical perspective though, the slow fade means slowly reducing contact, taking longer to respond to messages, declining invitations, and generally becoming less available. This works great for casual relationships or acquaintances. However, for closer relationships, especially family members, you might need a clean break conversation. For example, I've realized that a relationship isn't healthy for either of us right now, and I need to take some space to work on myself. My friend, remember this. You don't owe anyone access to your energy and your peace of mind. This isn't selfish. It's necessary for your mental health and your ability to serve others from a full cup rather than from an empty one. I want to address the guilt that often comes with this decision. Many of us are raised to believe that we should tolerate bad behavior from family or longtime friends because that's just how they are, or blood is thicker than water. But if we're being consistently harmed by their actions, then we have to stop excusing their behavior. If you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, this is so tough, I need a sign about what to do next. Seriously? You need a sign? Hello, here I am. The fact you're listening to this podcast right now for the past 15 plus minutes is the sign that you've been waiting for. Now that you have your sign, please take the necessary action. Your mental health matters, your peace matters, your ability to show up fully for the people who treat you well matters. So here's your third kind of strategy of the episode. Conduct an honest vibe check of your relationship this week. Identify one person who consistently drains your energy and commit to either setting a clear boundary or reducing contact. If this feels overwhelming, start small. Maybe it's just limiting phone calls to 10 minutes or declining to engage in certain topics of conversation. Remember, removing toxic people from your life isn't about punishment. It's about protection. You're protecting your ability to be the kind and self-loving human you want to be in this world. Okay, we've covered 3 crucial kind of strategies for guarding the door of your mind. Number 1, break free from cable news addiction by reading headlines instead of watching 3 hours of primetime news programming every night, turning off news alerts, and taking regular news detoxes. Second, reclaim your peace from social media by conducting fountain versus drain audits, create phone-free zones, and adding friction to your usage. And third, have the courage to remove toxic people by conducting regular vibe checks, setting firm boundaries, and being willing to love some people from a distance. Real talk, we cannot give what we don't have. If our minds are constantly filled with negativity, outrage, and toxicity, that's what we'll bring to our interactions with others. But when we guard the door of our mind carefully, We create space for kindness to make a much needed comeback. Not to mention, this work requires courage because it means swimming against the cultural current. Most people are addicted to cable news, scrolling mindlessly through social media and tolerating toxic relationships. Additionally, most people aren't trying to unite the world through kindness either. That's why I'm imploring you, begging you not to be like most people. Start with one strategy this week. Notice how protecting your mental space affects your capacity for patience, kindness, and understanding. I promise you'll be amazed at the difference. This is your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa, and you now know that kindness can't be weak because you just experienced the strength of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Until next time, my friend, the journey to a kinder world continues. Thank you for listening to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I have one favor to ask of you. If you could kindly hit the subscribe button, leave a rating and a review, not only would that be incredibly kind, but by doing so, you're actively playing a role in growing this movement and ideally getting us one step closer to creating a kinder world. Hope to see you next week for another episode of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Bye for now.